Hey guys, today I want to go through some books that I have that I really like, and I want to go through some of the ones that I have gotten that I'm not a big fan of for various reasons. Um, I'm going to preface this with saying that everybody is going to have a different goal, I guess, when they do watercolor, and that's really going to influence the books that you're going to like. For me, I do a lot of landscapes and that kind of thing, so I tend to lean towards those a lot more. Um, I also tend to, I think, lean towards a little looser style, so those are going to appeal to me more. I'm also kind of in a weird phase where I still consider myself a beginner, but I'm not a beginner, if that makes sense. I'm more, I guess, maybe an intermediate beginner. I've been doing this now for a little over a year, teaching myself as I go. A lot of YouTube tutorials, a lot of books, a lot of, looking at a picture and picking it apart and trying to figure out how to make it work. So I think I'm in a kind of awkward spot when it comes to some of the beginner stuff. Because some of it's a little too beginner for me now. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying any of these books are bad by any means. They're just ones that didn't necessarily fit for me. These are not all the books I have. I don't want to do that. This is already going to be a really long video. So, I just, like I said, this is definitely very personal, and what you're going to like and what you're not going to like. So you're going to get to see some of my messy top here so that I can actually get to some of these. The first one I want to talk about, or the first author I want to talk about, is going to be Kolbie Blume. The Waterscapes were the first book I bought, and ended up loving her book and deciding that I wanted to buy the rest of them. So there are 3 total. Each one of these is set up pretty much the same. I love all of them. For her, I really love the images that she offers. You will actually see these when I post sometimes, as being what I have painted. I like the variety. I like the color she uses. I like the instructions a lot. I really, really like how she does stuff. I find it pretty easy to follow for the most part, even when I was new. Um, I really do like this. She does the breakdown in the beginning of, some color theory and the brush strokes and, wet on wet, wet on dry, all that fun stuff. But she doesn't get too carried away. So that's something I also appreciated. Some of the books, there's just too much. Or for me, there's just too much. So I think most of these books lay down some colors that they're going to fall back on. She does get into like mixing certain colors. But obviously, if you have that color or you like a different color, then use that. Most of these are set up so that if you have a different color or something, they're not going to be an issue. So I really love her books. And if you like landscapes and you want to start with a book, to me, I would start with her absolutely, hands down. So one of my dogs is trying to play and they've broken the squeaker. So when you hear it, that's what it is. I love the Kolbie Blume books. I love them. I have no complaints with her books overall. I do think that it sets very good foundations. The only minor gripe maybe that I have is, and I didn't notice it so much in the others, but in some of these, like this one, for instance, she relied a lot on like white gouache. And for me, and of course I was coming in not as so much a beginner by that point, I would have just removed paint. So sometimes I tweak some of these. I'm kind of at a point now where a lot of times I'll sit and look at a picture for a minute and then see if I can recreate it without the instructions. And that's been an interesting experience to try. Sometimes I do okay, sometimes not so much. But like I said, she's got 3 different books. I really, really like her books. I don't think you can go wrong with them. All right, let me put that aside. The next book is this Watercolor Wanderlust. Had to spit that out. You guys may know Hannah Pickerill from her painting videos. She does really neat tutorials that I like to watch. I find her very soothing, actually. Her pictures are beautiful. The things that she chose in here, again, I feel like it's a lot of good foundation that you can carry with you. There's a wonderful variety of stuff here, depending on what you like. A lot of things that she has used, like pictures she has used from her own travels and stuff. So pretty much all of her stuff is based on a photo, and she gives you that photo in the beginning so you can kind of see how it lines up. So again, just a big variety of different ones. I really like her book. I like her instructions a lot. She does lay out some basics in the beginning, like I said, as all of these do, but it's not an over-the-top breakdown or anything. It's useful, so I don't hate that. Again, I actually really do like this book. I haven't done a whole lot out of it yet, but it's a good, I think, setup. I really like the books that teach you certain things that you can kind of take other places. And, you know, a lot of times I will look at some of these books and be like, oh, I like this, I want to tweak it, and I'll go paint it like in my journal or whatever. And then this one, which is why we are so zoomed out, is the Big, Bold, Beautiful Watercolor Skies by Zanina Nabil. If I butcher anybody's name, I'm terribly sorry. I love the pictures in here. So all of the colors, for the most part, are bright and bold, and I love that, which I know is kind of not a hallmark of watercolor, which also, you know, one of the reasons I kind of wonder how I ended up in watercolor versus something else. But a lot of variety, a lot of varying complexities. I do like that. A lot of blending and just, you know, different techniques to try, again, that you can carry with you. So it's a very, I do like this book. And again, you'll recognize some of the stuff I've posted has been stuff out of here. The only thing I can say is some of the colors definitely did not match up to what I have. My Perm Violet was not that color, but like the Windsor Violet was a good match. So that's kind of the only thing I can say. And then I made notes on the ones that did not quite match up with what I have. There is, again, you know, a breakdown. They give you colors that they use. I believe that she also does some mixing stuff for that. You know, thankfully most of these books have it set up so you don't have to have a whole lot of colors, but it's not a super giant breakdown, and I like that. So again, I really like this book. I use it a lot. And then The Easy Watercolor Flowers by Bianca Rosen. It's actually not a bad little book. There is a lot of variety. This is definitely a looser style for the most part, which I appreciate. I am not very good at drawing, so having some of that, I don't want to say detailed, but more complex style where you're dependent on that, I'm not as keen to do. So there is minimal preamble in this book. You know, she breaks down a few strokes but really talks about, you know, the loose painting and letting the paint kind of do what you need to do. She does give you a palette, but it's not a whole lot, and there's not a whole lot of, this is wet on wet, this is wet on dry. They touch on it, but it's not a huge breakdown the way some of the books are. There is a big variety of the different types of flowers. I feel like most of them are pretty well broken down, easy to do, easy to manipulate, and turn into something that you want, kind of thing. So overall, I actually do like this book. I bought this because I don't feel like I'm very good at florals at this point. I can do a couple of them, and then I'm like, I'm really kind of not good at this. So there is some breakdown, and she, does it into different categories as well. One's wildflowers, that kind of thing. But I do like her breakdown, and I think there's a lot in here. So if you really like loose florals kind of thing, then this might be a good book for you. If you're looking for something, more, I guess, structured is the word I want, then that's probably not the breakdown that you want. All right, let me get to my other page here. I had to make notes because there's so many of these that I knew I wasn't going to remember everything I wanted to say. The Joy of Watercolor by Emma Block. I actually really like this one. I think the breakdown is great. The way she breaks stuff down is nice. There is more of an instructional breakdown, your washes, your colors, your mixes, that thing in the beginning. I've gotten to the point I kind of skip over that because I don't need a repeat every time. There are multiple subjects in this book, everything from florals to markets to people. I feel like, is a really good beginning spot if you want to learn to paint people. It is a little looser style, but I think it's a good building block for that, which is cool. There's a lot of talk about, creating skin tones and that kind of thing. So if you don't know about how to do that, or you feel like you're not getting what you want, then that's a good thing. This is definitely a book that is less about perfection than just painting and enjoying it. So in fact, one of the reasons I got this book is because in each section there's beginner pieces, there's intermediate pieces, and there's more advanced pieces. So I really like that. So she does break down a lot of stuff in a lot more depth than some of the other books that I really like. But you guys probably recognize the hydrangea one that I did, that I painted multiple times just to see the change. But there's flowers. This is considered beginner. And then we get a little more intermediate, and then we go to a more advanced. So that really appealed to me because I felt like there was something for everybody in here. And it's like that for each section, where you've got some beginner stuff, and then it kind of moves to a more intermediate kind of thing. And then you get into your more complex stuff. And that I really liked. So, like I said, there's plants, there's different objects, that kind of thing. So, like, for instance, if you look at her vases, they're not symmetrical, they're not perfect. As somebody that can't draw very well, that really appealed to me, but it's about learning the shadows and the design and that kind of thing. So I really like that. I think this is a solid book to grow with. Just a lot of different things to look at. And again, she breaks down the people really well, and, skin tones and simple faces and that kind of thing. And as somebody who, isn't, I guess, an artist in the classical sense, people are definitely very intimidating. So I did like the breakdown on this a lot, and going through it. But like I said, I really do like her stuff. In fact, there were a couple of pictures specifically that made me actually buy this book. So I definitely think this is a good one to have, kind of no matter what stage you're in. I'm a big fan of this one, actually. And then, so I'm going to butcher this name. I really apologize. Anna Kolidich, if I had to guess. So this is the 15-minute Watercolor Masterpieces. These are all fairly small paintings, very loose, kind of just easy to paint stuff. They do have good instructions. She does, of course, have a little bit of a breakdown at the beginning of, washes and all that stuff, but it's not extensive. Most of the stuff is, like I said, just small. And if the color mixing, she breaks down for you as well. So if you don't have the color, you don't have the convenience colors, then you can do it. As you can see, everything is a pretty loose layout. So if you're like me and you like that loose style, then that's great. Different ideas on how to do things, and a breakdown on how to make it easier, how to look at it. Sometimes doing some of this is just all about shapes. That's something I learned from Andrea Nelson. So, just shapes. And I feel like it kind of does that. Again, there's some that are a little more complex, some that are less complex, that kind of thing. But overall, I like this book a fair bit. And I definitely recommend it. Like I said, they're not super complex things, but I do think it gives you a nice building block for things you might want to paint or things you can carry over. So I think with all of the books that I really like, there's certain themes, not too much over explaining, a good variety, good instructions, and things that techniques that you can take with you, maybe that you might not have picked up previously. So those are the ones that I really like and can easily recommend. And then we're going to get into the ones that I'm a little iffy on or just don't like. So let me grab those. Oh, it's another good stack. And again, this is not a dig at any of these. It's not to say that they're bad or anything like that. It's just not what I needed. So the first one is this Harriet de Winton Birds, Bees, and Blossoms. I bought this on a recommendation from another tutorial person. It's, again, not a bad book, but it definitely relies heavily on you being able to draw. So if you are like me and that is not a thing, some of it she does break down into more simple shapes, but some of it she doesn't. And a lot of this is going to rely on symmetry, and symmetry is hard for me. So I do like the pictures in here. I do like some of these. There are a few that are a little more simple. But overall, this is not a book for beginners. It's, for the most part, that's just, like I said, I just don't feel like it's a good book for beginners. There is minimal breakdown in the beginning of strokes, etc., which was nice because, I'm hitting a point where it's getting a little monotonous to slog through some of that. I haven't used it a whole lot because of the drawing requirements. So it just, yeah, I probably will at some point when I get more confident, but we'll see. And I know I am about to cause a ruckus, so let's just go ahead. All right, so Lacey Walker, you guys know her from Rebel Unicorn Crafts. Love her tutorials. She put out a book, and I was very excited to get it. I'm not a huge fan of how this book is set up. So with the fold, you've got, the book on one side and the paper on the other side. If you have a smaller space, this is going to potentially be difficult, but these are all like glued in and hard to get out. And, the back page on this is completely glued. So I'm not a big fan of that. I would have preferred them just be separate. I'm not a huge fan of this paper. Like, I think this is a really nice thing if you want to use it as like a watercolor coloring book. I don't know. I do like the fact that she has the templates separate. You can download them, print them onto your own paper if you want to do it that way. I do like her breakdown of some of the steps and things, which is good. There is a fair bit of preamble and breakdown, color theory and strokes and stuff like that. which if you are brand new, this book probably appeals to you a little more. Again, I love Lacey. This just wasn't quite for me, I guess. And I have done some of these on my own paper, just because I didn't really care for this. And like I said, I don't like this side-by-side thing. It bothers me. So it's not a bad book, and I do like a lot of the subjects in it, and think it could be really fun. I don't know. It didn't quite do it for me. There are a lot of QR links in here, so some of them lead to her videos, some of them, a little better breakdown, that kind of thing. Like I said, there is a QR code in here for the templates for all of the images in here if you want to print them off again. I do like that. I think that was a pretty cool idea. So I don't know. This is kind of one of the ones I'm like, on. I think you could have fun with it, but it just kind of wasn't up my alley. And then I think some of these I'm really gonna ruffle some feathers. So this is Jenna Rainey's book. She is also a well-known YouTube artist. The Everyday Watercolor book. It is set up to do stuff, learn in 30 days, I guess. This is actually one of the first books I bought, and it is so wordy. I have ADHD, so there is a point in there where I cannot slog through any more words. And I love to read. I read every single day. I read, average a book or two a week. Oh, this was so much. So, all right. There is a lot of preamble in this one. So, a lot of breakdown on brush strokes and color theory and stuff like that. So that immediately was kind of for me. Every section that she does is kind of like that. Yeah, I just, a lot of this is teaching brush control and stuff like that, which is great. Maybe it was a little too beginnery for me by the time I got this. I don't know. So a lot of the stuff in the beginning, I had no desire to even try to paint because it was just too simple. Later on, some of it's a little better, but I also just found some of the subjects kind of boring. Like, I really don't care about this papaya. I really don't. So, I don't know. It was kind of not for me. I did like how at the end you are building into like a big overall painting that's sort of going to combine some stuff. I did like that. I think the initial part for me was kind of the deal breaker, and the fact that it's just so wordy, and I couldn't get into it. So, yeah, this was not for me. Again, no shade to her. It just wasn't a book that I can use a lot. Maybe later on I'll go back and kind of do some of these like I do with some of the others, where I just look at the picture and try to recreate it and go from there. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, this one's gonna cause problems. This is the Emma Lefebvre Watercolor Lessons book. Literally a third of this book is preamble. It's color mixing, it's brush strokes, it's color theory, it's, yeah. For me, it's a lot, and I just feel like it was so unnecessary. So much. And I feel like it really took away from the number of tutorials that you could get out of this book. I do like the breakdown on some of these and painting them, and growing it and being able to put it all together, that kind of thing. I actually found her tree tutorial really helpful in something I was working on the other day. I couldn't get it to come out right, and I started flipping through books, and I was like, oh, this is what I want. So that was awesome. These are not overly complicated projects, which is nice for beginners. Heck, it's nice for anybody, actually. Sometimes you don't want something complicated. So it wasn't I don't know. It's just, like I said, it's not a bad book by any means. It's just not, I think the initial preamble was just so much, and I just couldn't get into it. So a lot of the stuff is a looser style I like. That's awesome. Even the animals are a little looser. And then at the end, she does give you some tracing pages if you want to do these projects and you don't want to sketch them out. So that's actually pretty cool. I don't know. I'm very mixed on this book. There's a lot of things that I do like, but there's also a lot of things that I'm just like, oh dear God. So I don't know. I've come to the conclusion that spending so much time going over strokes and techniques like that, I'm at a point now where it just bothers me. So I also got this one on a recommendation. In fact, these last two are recommendations I saw elsewhere. Dude, I don't know what he's barking at. Dude, sir, thank you. This Anna Pickerill. I thought this was going to be more tutorial. This is literally a very, very long book of a lot of breakdown. Had I realized that's what it was, I would not have gotten this. There is no way I am ever going to slog through this. I'm just not. It is very wordy and very long, and it's just not for me. If you want that kind of thing, you want to talk about all the different things you can do, then maybe this is great for you. I literally got it and was going to send it back, and then just kind of didn't get it there, and now I have it. So yeah. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say. It's just not what I expected, I think. And then this one kind of hurts me a little bit. This is the Modern Watercolor Workshop, Pooja Kinjale Umrani. Sorry, told you I was going to butcher some of these names. So this one is a little more abstract-y, very loose in most cases, folky kind of stuff. This one hurts me because I really like some of the stuff in here, but my biggest issue right now with this book is that it's a lot of grid work. You have to draw grids for all of this stuff, and I am not doing that. I know me, and I would lose interest just doing the grid. So that's what I don't like about it. That said, it is a lot of repetitive painting, which is not a bad thing. I say that, and I think people think I mean it's a bad thing, but stuff like this for me is very soothing. So I like to do this kind of painting when I just kind of want to relax my brain, watch the colors flow, that kind of thing. So there are some stuff later on that are a little less grid worky, like this. You know, this is all about grid work, and I honestly, just looking at this to sketch it out, it just makes me go, ugh. There are some stuff later on that are a little more, I guess, freehand. You know, this book is set up so it shows you, it gives you a little bit of a breakdown, and then you do some practice before you actually do the actual painting portion, which is not a bad thing. There are some things in here that I really like, and I will probably get to. I just, like I said, the grid work really kind of stopped me in my tracks. I'm just not a fan of that. That's like math. I just don't want to do that. So I may skip ahead on some of these because I do actually like some of these. And then on a few of these, she did give you a little bit of a sketch page if you wanted it. And then I don't think it's a bad book. I'm not I don't know. Like I said, the grid work really kind of screeched me to a halt. And there's a few others where she kind of gives you a little bit of a sketch page if you wanted it. But I don't know. Like I said, I really like some of the stuff in this book. In the intro, let me go back. There is a pretty large intro on, you know, washes and watercolor and supplies and stuff like that. So, yeah, I've already said how I felt about that. But like I said, some of the stuff, the relaxing stuff is great. I'm not doing that grid. I'm never going to do that grid ever. So, yeah, but so those are the books that I have that I really like, and some that I probably would have skipped, and some that were probably somewhere in between. But you know, again, everybody has a different need in what books they want and need and want to work with. You know, that grid work may be soothing to you, and it's just not to me. So take everything with a grain of salt. Hopefully you found something here you liked that you want to try. I think all the authors deserve some recognition, because I can't even imagine putting together something like this. It makes my head spin. So anyway, I hope you guys found some of this helpful, and get out there and go paint something.